Welcome to the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. My name is Paul D'Allegro, your host today, and my guest is Matthew Scott, Field CTO and Global Strategy and Technology Office at NetApp. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Great to be here. I've been quite excited since you asked me to be on, so thank you very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Well, before we get started, I got kind of a dumb question for you, but problem. There's some people that aren't in technology may wonder, what is a field CTO? Let's get some definitions out of the way right now. What does that mean?
That's a good question. Generally, I take a larger set of customers, especially the larger customers within our geographical districts, and I try to work with them on the strategy and the vision for their data management, for their entire data estates. And that includes both the on-prem kind of characteristics and the off-prem or the cloud characteristics. Try to make sure that their alignment and their vision for what they're going to do with their strategy is smart and appropriate for their business, and also takes advantage of kind of the technologies that happen today.
Okay, cool. And you've been at NetApp a long time. What, I think 18 years?
Yep, going on 19. I think it was 2004 when I joined. So yes.
Yeah. That's an eternity in our industry. You know that, right?
I know. I've been told that quite a bit. It was kind of surprising to me when I actually realized, I've been doing this here longer than I was ever at school.
Yeah. And I noticed on your bio you graduated from MIT in Cambridge, Mass. And I am actually from that area. I grew up in Somerville, Massachusetts, the next town over. I mean, I'm almost walking distance from MIT.
That's right. Well, as I told you before, I lived in Somerville for one of my graduate school years with a couple of my buddies. So, very familiar. Walk to the Porter Square station all the time and know the Red Line pretty well.
There you go. Great city. So, well, let's jump right in. Matt, the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, I mean, you've got a lot of experience in technology, obviously, and more on the data management, data security space, because that's kind of what the space that NetApp is in. High level, and then we can dig into the details. What are you seeing out there? I mean, technology is changing so fast, from data storage, security, ransomware. There's a million different things out there. What are you seeing in the data storage area, and then how we protect our data? What are the trends you're seeing out there?
Yeah, there are two main trends that I see that are pretty common across small, medium, and large-sized businesses. The first one that I think would be important to discuss would be the transition, or at least the proliferation, into the cloud environments. And so those can include SaaS type of environments all the way up into using complete hyperscalers for part of your operations. So that's the number one. And the second one, absolutely every single conversation, and you probably know this too, because it happens with your company, you get into a security discussion with your right. customers. So securing your data has really changed quite a bit over the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years. Gone from essentially what we would call a perimeter-based discussion to a zero-trust discussion. And those are the two biggest areas that you almost always get into. How to secure your data in the proper way, and then also, kind of at the other end of the spectrum, how to also spread your data among all of the best estates that you can manage.
Yeah. And why would you do that, Matt? Why would you want to spread it out like that?
So most people right now realize that there is some sort of value in using cloud-type environments. Now, the value may not be financial immediately, right? It may not be that you're going to recognize a whole bunch of financial gains as a result of it. But what you do measure fairly easily is the speed of being able to build new applications or rebuild old applications, and the speed of being able to take on new capabilities in business. So you can shift direction very, very quickly in the cloud, much more quickly than you can do that
right.
on-prem. So the speed at which a business can actually shift or change is really very difficult to measure, but it is magnitudes easier in the cloud.
So in Europe, and that this is the discussion we have all the
Mhm.
time. What's the defining line in your mind of should I go to the cloud or should I stay on-prem? And I know there's not one answer to this, but what's your take on that? Because it's a complex
Right.
question.
And I think a good dividing line for me is a question of what is your core business competency, right?
Okay.
So if you're a business, for example, great thing to do is to take a look and audit your kinds of applications into classes. And one of those classes is going to be the stuff that does not really add value to me as a company, but I need to do it. And
Right.
that could be something like Office 365 or maybe a Salesforce or something like that. That stuff should be a SaaS operation. So it
Got it.
shouldn't be something that you have to do internally. That stuff should be moved off into either a cloud or a SaaS operation. It's only the core stuff to your business that really differentiates you in the marketplace. That is the kind of stuff that you should really invest in. And maybe that's an on-prem or an off-prem discussion. But that's the thing that I tell most CIOs or CTOs to concentrate on. What is the stuff that really makes you you?
And so, but why would you not want to put that up in the cloud?
It really depends on the kinds of application that you're creating. If you're creating a large scale application that needs massive distribution, so if you're an Uber or a Netflix or something like that, distribution is part of your business acumen. Those things need to go in cloud because the scalability is so great in the cloud. On the
Right.
other hand,
Okay, that makes
on the other
sense.
hand, if your business is to make a widget or if you have a manufacturing line and you have a fairly well established on-prem capability to do that, and it maybe is a custom bit of software that you developed over the years, there may not be a usage for doing that in the cloud. So it really depends on sort of what I would call the scalability of your applications and your core application. That really judges it for me.
Yeah. So when you go in and meet with customers, I mean, you kind of have a blueprint, and not exact, but it sounds like you have a blueprint to say, hey, this is the criteria that we use to help you.
You do have a blueprint. It's more of a listening kind of scenario that I do. I want to listen a lot to the customers to have them tell me kind of how they use their data, what they're trying to do in terms of projects, how they've pushed into the cloud, they may have pulled back, what their history is also with it. And you can make judgments based on that, I think, fairly easily. And one example for one point of view, I guess, is like let's figure out how they're using hypervisors now. If they're using a particular hypervisor and they want to keep using it, or maybe they want to transition up to one in a hyperscaler, or maybe they want to get rid of it all completely and go to something that's more containerized. So those things will tell me kind of what directions that they would like to go to. Sometimes those directions are not appropriate for a particular piece of software, and it may be for another one. So got to
Yeah.
listen really, really closely, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see it all the time. We'll get a call from a customer, and they've already in their mind figured out what they wanted to
Yeah,
do, right? And that's a problem sometimes, right?
I agree.
Just it's. Go ahead. You were about to say
Well,
something.
it's kind of maybe it's a secret, maybe it's not a secret in the industry, but sometimes you would listen to a customer and they would say, "Yeah, we want to go do this," and something in the back of your head says, "Up, that's the most expensive possible way of doing it." And uh, it's your job, my job, it's everybody's job who's a partner in the industry to kind of say to the customer, you might want to think about doing it a different way. And sometimes those are hard conversations to have because
Yeah.
they've already done this political jockeying to get a particular solution in place, and you have to tell them, well, I don't think your baby's exactly ugly, but I do think it may need some makeup.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great way to put it. But I agree with you on that. I mean, I can tell you the worst thing the thing I hate most is when someone calls me and says, "Hey, I need a quote on something,"
Yeah.
And as a salesperson, sure, we're here to we make money when we sell something, but really, are we doing our jobs if we just take an order without investigating to say, hey, let's sit down, let's back up, let's take a look at your environment. What's the goals here? What are the pain points? And maybe we have another solution. At least we've done, in my opinion, at least we've done our job at that point.
Correct.
And given them some options. If they choose to go another route, then at least we've given them options.
Yeah, one big option that's coming up quite a bit nowadays is, people are not locked into that particular capital purchase option, right? And maybe they'll be coming to you and saying, well, I just need to do a refresh on this other stuff because I want to keep doing the things that I've always been doing. Okay, fine. How is your finances right now? Are you inclined to do more capital purchases and depreciate it, the sort of the old way of doing it? Are you inclined to do it in a more service-oriented way so that you can pay month to month, and that way you can maybe make changes in a quicker fashion? And we all know that because of the supply chain problems that we've had in the last few years, maybe if you order a piece of hardware, you may not get it for a few months. And that may be a big problem and would throw your projects into limbo.
Yeah, well, that's a big shift in the industry too, Matt. Is going to consumption or subscription models, right? Kind of to your point. I mean, the days of I think days of getting locked into a 3-year hardware purchase, I think those are going away. I mean, most people want flexibility. That hey, I want to change in 6 months, a year, 2 years. I want the flexibility to do it.
And now you've just touched on another one of the wonderful parts of the cloud, right? You always get those capabilities of having those subscription models, or at least a consumption model. And so if you can shift your mind as a business into the sort of idea of being able to use a service, maybe use that service for a certain number of months, and maybe either move off of it, expand it, or shift over to another way of doing things, it gives you that flexibility in order to be able to attack the marketplace in a better way. And I think the number one characteristic for businesses, what they think about for the next, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 20 years, is going to be how fast can I be that flexible provider? That's going to be a major differentiator in the marketplace, flexibility.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's get into security a little bit, Matt. I mean, the big buzzwords out there, and I kind of want you to use some definitions because we don't have just technology people listening to these. So what exactly is zero trust? In a layman's term, what is that?
Zero trust kind of means what you think it means, which is any application or any person is not automatically trusted just because they're in the network. So they must obtain either credentials or they must be okayed by the application every single time that they use it. And it's that every single time part where you actually come back to an application or come back to a usage that you may have done 100 times, but you still have to authenticate every single time. That's the real differentiator in zero trust. And since it's done inside a network or inside an organization, it's put in place so that there are no essential trusted environments in there. So that is a huge difference for any kind of company who is used to having administrators who have root passwords to everything. That just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, so we see a lot of our customers going at multi-factor authentication just because it's just and it's a little. I have to admit, when I first started doing, even for our company, MFA, it was a little annoying having to. But I'm used to it now. It's like I get it. It takes an extra second, but I think it's well worth it because the bad guys out there are figuring this out too. There's ways of working around that as well.
Correct. And multi-factor is just one of the major tools. I'm glad you brought it up because it is sort of one of the tools to have in your bag. Everybody should have a screwdriver, probably, if you have a garage or a tool set. You should probably have a hammer and a pair of pliers and things like that. Those other kinds of tools may also include for your data things like encryption options, how to actually do the keys for them and where to keep them. It should be also a kind of an active alerting, monitoring, and auditing system so that you know when activities are going on inside your environment, and you should be able to take advantage of that really, really quickly. There are lots of statistics in the industry that point to the fact that malware and ransomware and things like that lives inside a particular organization for days, weeks, or months before it actually even gets active. And because of that,
Yep.
it's not really even the point of when that malware gets in. It's the fact that it actually takes advantage of you many, many months later. It's very much like an organism.
Yeah. No, we've always heard that they lurk for a while. They go east to west. They kind of and next thing you know,
Right.
they've got you.
So our approach, just in terms of data management, I think a best approach for most companies is to do what we call security at depth. And all that means is you should have multiple layers of security. No one piece of software or one strategy is going to be able to solve all of your problems. And it just makes sense, kind of, if you think about how you do your house, for example. That's a really good analogy. You may have some audio or video cameras out in front, and then you have a lock on your door. You may have a lock interior to some of your other rooms in the house. You may have a safe somewhere in there where you keep your real valuable stuff.
Right.
That idea of having multiple kinds of layers, depending on how your data is structured, is appropriate for the IT organization. Sure, you should have perimeter security, but on every single layer, as you get closer to the most valuable data that you should have maybe a different kind of security. And that could be, I don't know, let's say encrypting the data in particular volumes. Taking your personally identifiable information and storing it in an encrypted format in some location. There are lots of ways to do it, but everybody kind of gets the idea of as you get closer to the important data, you have to do something different.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with your layered approach, by the way. Not to name names of any companies because there's a lot of good solutions out there, but when a customer says you don't need another solution, we have it all. I kind of, if I had any hair in my head, it would stand up and I said, but we tell our customers, look, you need a layered approach because, one's not going to get, the first solution may not catch it, the second solution
Right.
may. So you need several to overlap so that, and nothing's going to be 100%, but you at least limit your chances.
I think you're coming to a really good point there because there are various kinds of data which are more prone to be attacked than others, and some of the things that are tools out there will allow you to examine the authentication of the data. Some of them will allow you to attack maybe the identities of the accounts that are coming in, and still others will allow you to take a look at the metadata regarding the data. All of that is appropriate. Like you said, there's not one tool out there that does everything, and frankly, I wouldn't want one tool to do everything.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. Good point. So let's shift a little bit. We talked a lot about, data security. Going forward, Matt, what do you think? What do you think is IT and data storage going to be in a hybrid world going forward, or is it going to be one or the other? Cloud, on-prem? What's your take on that?
well, my take is that data tends to go where it needs to go. And so most companies in the future will be touching, I would say, between 5 and maybe as many as 20 different clouds as they go forward.
Okay.
So you're going to have some SaaS operators like an Office 365. You're going to have some things like, I don't know, Workday or other applications that you use internally.
Some back office app.
Sure.
Yep.
Salesforce is a good example, for example.
Yep.
And as soon as you start multiplying those numbers, then you're going to have to take care of security for that data. And then, like I said, the things that you're really good at as a company, the things that give you value, you'll probably hold those tight. Those will be in a specific development location, and then you'll have the highest level of security based on that. So you're going to have some in on-prem. You're going to have some things that are located maybe in a DR facility or a colo, and then you're also going to have some things that are located out in the cloud. I would be very surprised in the future if you ever get a company which is only located in one location. So
Yeah.
having that sort of idea of a spider spread or a web kind of spread will be the way that most people operate.
Well, one of the things we see is companies have these tools in place, but if you don't have some sort of a monitoring system in place, like either a response system or a SOC or something, that I wouldn't say they're useless, but if you're not on this every day, you can get yourself in trouble. What's your take on that?
I'm glad you pointed it out. One of the biggest changes that's happened over the last year or so has been the rise of what I would call AI responses. Now, it doesn't have to be, Chat GPT driven or any of the modern AI kind of stuff that we just hear about. But let's just say an artificially intelligent way to take action based on what's the incoming data that it sees. So your monitoring, your alerting solution is fine, but that's just kind of like an alarm going off in your house. You need something that will slam the doors. And so the newest tools really take proactive action as soon as they see something like that happening. So for us, and this is specific to us because we come at it from a data point of view, but we have tools, for example, that when they see this monitoring and alerting thing going on, they notice something out of the ordinary, they automatically start taking snapshots on the affected volumes, and then they start locking out accounts. And so you're doing this on an AI kind of driven agenda without a man in the middle.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you can come back and say, okay, I can release those snapshots, or that account did actually do something okay, and they were deleting a whole lot of stuff manually. But you want these sort of automatic driven responses, because if you don't have them, you will suffer.
Yeah, I mean, automation is key, right? If you can, out of 100 responses, if you can manage, 95%, I'm just throwing a number out there, without any human interaction, it's going to be pretty efficient. And then there's going to be a few that need some human interaction, obviously, right?
So you need that sort of AI to handle what's that level of, alert. You get that red level of alert, and things start being encrypted in locations within your company. You want to have that response of, I need the flashing lights, I need the doors to be slammed automatically, and then I need to alert everybody of what's going on. Then people can get together and say, what happened, right? Better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And the bad guys still get in somehow. I don't know how they do it, but these guys are pretty smart.
And the code is very smart too, It like you said, it can sit around for a while. It's very much like an organism of its own. It's like a human virus. And of course, there are hacker kinds of websites and hacking for a service that are available overseas. And so these kinds of things are kind of the state of the art right now. And that's why we try to push this idea of security at depth.
Yeah, you got me thinking about this. I remember for a while there, I mean, a lot of big companies were getting hit with ransomware. Haven't heard anything recently, though. It seems to have, I know it's still going on, obviously, but it seems to have quieted down a bit. Is that my imagination? Or?
I would say that the press releases about them are very well controlled. You can kind of read into what the press releases have said, but maybe it's just the control sequences that have been discussed. Not to name names, but a very famous, let's say Dish. Well, it's Dish Network published on their 10 their 10.4 SEC guidance, that they got hit and they still have not recovered from their problem. So that's public knowledge. But that's been the one that's been the most damaging, I think, to a brand for quite a while.
Yeah, well, now we're getting off track, but I mean, does anyone buy any Dish or Direct TV anymore? I mean, I know I cut the cord a long time ago, and I go with, I have YouTube
Right.
TV, but
Well, the interesting thing about these larger corporations is that they own other brands in addition. So it's not just this network. They
yeah,
also own, I think, Boost Mobile and, a number of other brands that other people already use. So you
yeah,
may not use them in specific, but they may be just a holding company.
yeah,
Hmm.
diversification, right? So, well, great, Matt. This was great. Any, before we close out, we've covered a number of different subjects. Anything else, any guidance you'd like to give to customers out there that are looking to update their data platform, update the security stance? Any kind of last words of wisdom before we close out here?
The most important thing that I think our customers and the customers that we talk to are looking for is this idea of what's coming next in terms
Right.
of data. And what I can tell you is if there's anything that's constant, it's change. There is no possible way that any company out there could have taken a look and said, oh, I knew exactly what was going to happen 5 years ago. Not a chance.
Yeah, no, I agree with that one.
So the best thing for most companies out there is to look for the most kind of flexible data solution that they can. In other words, not to get locked in, but also to have capabilities where they can expand into the cloud easily or do a transition into the cloud in addition. That they can do a pullback if they need to. So it's that whole idea of flexibility and movement that needs to be forefront in people's minds when they consider data. And as you know, that's kind of antithetical to the way that data is laid out, right? Data is mostly thought of as
Right,
being gravitational, right? It stays in one place.
right.
And that is absolutely not what we see nowadays. Data moves constantly.
No, I think that's sound advice, Matt. Yeah, flexibility, right? Again, like anything else in life, when you go buy a car, right, you look at different models, right? You want
Hmm.
options. Kind of a rudimentary example there, but you're right. Customers want options, and I think flexibility is definitely the
I
way to
think you
go.
just put your finger on the rise of the SUV.
There you go.
That's the exact
Yeah,
reason
does
why.
that? I mean, yeah, it's funny. Now we're going off topic here, but I mean, if you notice, I mean, some car companies don't even make cars anymore. I mean, pickup trucks and SUVs are the
That's
way to
right.
go. It's
So
amazing.
utility is the key idea there. Maybe they should call them sport
Yep.
flexibility vehicles.
Yeah, there you go. You could be onto something, Matt.
Yeah, well, I guess the check's in the mail.
Yeah, there you go. So, well, cool, Matt. On that note, we'll close out the show. Great info. Really enjoyed having you on, and I'm sure I'll see you around town. I saw you at an event last week, so I'm sure we'll, unfortunately or fortunately, we'll be running into each other
That would
again.
be great. And if you'd like to get back on and we can do some talking about some other kind of data related things, I'd be happy to. It's a great place to do
Absolutely.
this. So I appreciate you asking me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Matt, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? I mean, what's the best
Right.
way?
So, you can obviously use my LinkedIn discussion. I mean, LinkedIn address in order to get to me. It's just Matthew Scott underscore TX. Um, or you can email me at mscott@netapp.com. But we're going to bring in, the best of the teams in order to look at your business, and they will always, almost always, include partners such as yourself in order to do an audit or to do some kind of discussion. We really do believe in that, close kind of contact with our customers, and so we're going to to take it seriously. That would be the best way to get in touch with us.
Awesome. All right, Matt. Well, thanks for being on the show, and that is a wrap for Business Brains and the Bottom Line. Until next time.